Okay. This topic is probably the most important thing for any entrepreneur. And I'm just going to speak to entrepreneurs in general because I'm an entrepreneur and this is how I think. Um, we have a goal when we get into entrepreneurship, and it's to get us closer to the life that we actually want. And that is something that changes over time. But having clarity on what we actually want in our life really should be driving all the decisions that we make in our business. I think it's fair to say that most of us want freedom. We want to have enough money to fund the things in our life that we want. We want health. We want relationships. We want all these different things. But what I also find, and this is true about myself for years, I still fight this to this day, is this idea of chasing more and more and more. And how do we make sense of that? We started having this discussion years back with some different mentors of mine, and there's a guy named Dan Nicholson who introduced me to this framework he calls the Solvable Problem. Let's see if I can get it there. And actually, I wrote a chapter in this book with him to describe how I think real estate investors approach this concept. The idea here is like, if we don't have a solvable problem for the things that we want in life, we're always going to be chasing more. So, like, how much money do you need to live the life that you want on your terms? What does it mean to be, we say this stuff like, I want to make more money. I want to be happier. I want to be healthier. I want whatever. But like, that means nothing because it just means more. I want to be healthier. What does that mean exactly? I want to make more money. Well, how do you know when you get there? So the idea of the solvable problem is to have something to establish on your what we call the floor. So the idea here is like saying, not that I don't want to make more money. It's just a matter of like, how much money do you need to fund the things in your life that you want? I'll speak specifically towards my situation. My wife and I have decided we certainly could live on less than this, but $500,000 a year seems to be the number that if we had that coming in every single year consistently, it allows us to take the vacations that we want, to live in the house that we want, to afford the different things like eating out and going to restaurants and whatever that may be. And I think if you don't have clarity on what that number is, it becomes about making decisions just based off of more and more and more. So this is going back to the idea of the barbell. We talk about the two sides of the barbell, one being reliability and the other side being asymmetric bets or playing to your full potential. And so when I think about the reliable side, what I'm describing there is the solvable problem. How do we engineer and design the businesses that we're operating and running to be able to fund the lifestyle that we want on our terms as reliably as possible? Not because we want to sit on the beach all day and drink Mai Tais. Again, our people, my people, the people that are inside the club, they're high performers, man. You're not just going to like give me a certain amount of money for me to just retire at the age of 35. Nobody wants to do that in our club, right? We want to play business like a sport. We want to see what our full potential is. We want to play at the highest level. But we don't want to do it if it's going to sacrifice our health, our wealth, our happiness, the amount of money we need to fund the lifestyle that we want. So it's like a two-pronged approach. You've got to get clear on what that solvable problem is, not because you're trying to put a cap on your potential, but because we have to have something to aim towards so that we know when to reduce risk, right? I don't know about you, but like I'm not interested in growing a company if it's going to cause me a tremendous amount of risk in all these areas of my life. We like to say that the biggest risk that we all face is not getting the things out of life that we want. So we want to get clear on that and we want to lock it in. And the challenge with this is that it moves over time, you know? If you're single, it might be one thing. If you get married, it might be another. If you start having kids, it might be another. These things evolve and they change over time, and that's okay. You know, we like to say, Dan Nicholson used to say this to me, it's like, give yourself permission to change your mind, but high performers, they're constantly focused on clarity. And are the strategies that I'm taking inside of my business helping me get closer to the goal that I want, or am I just chasing more and more and more? So when I think about solvable problem, it's really just getting clear on those things. We have a whole framework built out on how to get clarity on that, knowing that it's probably going to shift and move over time. That's okay. We can make decisions in real time. That's what a true high performer does, is they read the terrain and they adjust based on new information that's there. But we have to have something to aim at. We have to have clarity on what that means. And so we talk a lot about the solvable problem because it's so important to all the decisions we make from there. You know, if you say you want to have more time with your kids, but every decision you're making in your business is almost guaranteeing that you're going to have less time, I would argue that you're not getting closer to the thing that you actually want. And believe me, this is difficult, especially if you're wired towards action, if you're a hard charger like me. You want to play to your full potential. You want to push. You want to see how far you can go. But again, I think what most of us learn after we get into the business for a while is like, I'm not willing to chase all these things if it sacrifices all the other stuff in my life that matters. So we've got some frameworks. We've got some worksheets and different things and some like a whole process to take people through getting clarity on what that solvable problem is. But we'll sum it all up to just say you've got to get clear on what you want on your terms and on your timeline. You know, I guess another aspect to this is like saying, well, if you need $10 million to fund the lifestyle that you want and you're starting at $1 million, you might need to consider an appropriate timeline to hit these goals. Because again, what our brain wants is, I want to get there faster. I want to try to find ways to shortcut that process. And certainly there's ways to shortcut that. That's what the other side of the barbell is for. These asymmetric bets allow us to collapse time, but we want to build a reliable business that can move us towards funding the things in our life that we want on our terms and on our timeline. And that's how I sum up the solvable problem. So if you don't have a solvable problem, I highly recommend you getting one. And if you haven't read this book called The Solvable Problem, you probably can't see it, but there's my little name down there. Yeah, it's a little blurry. But go pick up this book and read a little bit about the solvable problem. Read some of the resources we're putting out and some of the case studies and the case in points that our members inside the club are providing on how they're getting clear on these things and how they're locking it in so that they have bandwidth, they have cash, they have energy, they have attention to play at the next level without sacrificing the things that they want most.